Today we're going to talk about how consumption is encouraged in our society and the increasing consumption of caffeine. I've got 3 mugs with me. The first mug is a 6-ounce coffee mug, and it's really not that common these days. You might see it in an old greasy spoon style diner. Usually they'll be a little bit narrower and taller, and for the most part these mugs have been surpassed by larger mugs. The purpose of this video is just to talk about how increasing consumption is being encouraged in our society. And that's fine if it's water, but when it comes to things like soft drinks or caffeinated beverages, it's important to be conscious of how much caffeine we're consuming. I think with most of us, myself included, I thought of 1 cup of coffee being 1 container, whether it's this size or whether it's a 24-ounce size. I would think of 1 cup being 1 cup as opposed to so many ounces or milliliters. I've been trying to cut out caffeine from my life and taper that down as I realized that caffeine does have some serious side effects, and caffeine is stress and it does impair deep sleep functions. And I've struggled with sleep for a number of years, so it only seems natural to take a look at caffeine and not just indiscriminately consume multiple cups of coffee in a day. So I want to be conscious of how many milligrams of caffeine I'm ingesting per day. And that includes sources from chocolate, soft drinks when I do drink them, and I don't drink energy drinks, but there's a number of different sources of caffeine, so it's important to be conscious of. The other thing too about the 6-ounce mug is when you see doctors' recommendations saying drink 2 to 3 cups of coffee in moderate amounts is fine, they're talking about a 6-ounce cup of coffee, but most of us don't drink a 6-ounce cup of coffee. We've moved up the scale. So after the 6-ounce cup of coffee, which is typically 68 milligrams of caffeine, we've moved to the 8-ounce mug. You can see this one happens to be the same size, it's just a bit taller. So this is more of the standard mug that we're accustomed to, and even these days it's looking a little bit small. So it's a 25% increase, 6 ounce to 8 ounce, basically 200 mils to 250 milliliters. And the caffeine consumption goes up proportionally. So it goes from 68 milligrams to about 90. Not a huge increase, but again, this is looking small by today's standards. Last, we've got the 14-ounce mug. This seems to be more of the norm now. Not necessarily in restaurants. Restaurants will use the standard 8-ounce mug. But going into people's homes, or if you've ever gotten a coffee mug or a teacup in the last few years, have you noticed how they've been bigger like this? And this is a more significant jump. This is going from 8 ounces to 14, which is almost double. And in this 14-ounce mug, there'd be 159 milligrams of caffeine. The reason why I point that out is if you're like me and you've been using these 14-ounce mugs, you drink 2 cups of coffee and you're already past the 300 milligram recommended limit of caffeine for the day. And that's just counting coffee. And 2 cups of coffee doesn't sound that bad. But if you're drinking 2 cups in the 6-ounce variety, that would only be about 170 milligrams of caffeine. So it wouldn't be that much. But when you think about it, the caffeine consumption is doubled as the mugs get bigger because we don't measure milligrams. And that's the first step in taking a look at caffeine, examining its side effects, is to look at my caffeine consumption and be conscious of it. I wouldn't just indiscriminately drink 4, 5, 6 shots of alcohol without thinking about it. I wouldn't indiscriminately smoke cigarettes or smoke cigars or anything else without being conscious of it, but for some reason caffeine seems acceptable to just drink it and not be conscious of what time you're drinking and how much sugar you're putting in it and how many milligrams of caffeine you're ingesting per day. And then the last thing I'll point out is, for some reason, caffeine has this exception. Some people will make fun of the biggie sizes and say, oh, this is getting out of control with pop, or they'll look at big gulps or super big gulps and say, these portion sizes are getting out of control. But for some reason, that attention never gets put on coffee. And I suspect that's because a lot of people drink coffee. And you can see the addictive behaviors in coffee. And that's one thing that has disturbed me, is needing a cup of coffee in the morning.